It is over between Tottenham Hotspurs and Thomas Frank. Tottenham Hotspurs parted ways with Thomas Frank after a devastating loss against Newcastle last night by 2 goals to 1. It has been a poor run of form for Thomas Frank. So Tottenham Hotspur decided that it is time for him to leave. Thomas Frank took over from Ange Postecoglou after he was being sacked at the end of last season after winning them their first trophy in over 21 years. Tottenham Hotspur parted ways with Ange Postecoglou and brought in Thomas Frank from Brentford. Fast forward towards the end of this season, like halfway through this season, Thomas Frank has been sacked. Now, this is a statement from Tottenham Hotspur on Thomas Frank. They said, Thomas was appointed in June 2025, and we have been determined to give him the time and support needed to build for the future together. However, results and performances have led the board to conclude that a change at this point in the season is necessary. Now, let's look at Thomas Frank statistics as a Tottenham Hotspur's manager. It is not a good statistics at all for Thomas Frank. In the Premier League alone, Thomas Frank has managed 2 wins in his last 17 Premier League matches. That is crazy. Now, the last time Spurs were 5 points or fewer from the relegation zone after 28 match days was the 2008-2009 season, sitting 4 points above the drop then. Spurs are winless in their last 8 Premier League games, 4 draws, 4 defeats. The club's longest Premier League winless streak since May-October 2008 under John Ramos. Now, Thomas Frank managed 27%, 27% win rate. That is so poor. So poor. That is the least in the history of Tottenham Hotspur's history. Now, Tottenham Hotspur is winless in 24 straight Premier League games when trailing at halftime. Only Burnley 36, Crystal Palace 34, and West Ham 25 have a lower active winless run in the Premier League among teams currently in the top flight. Now, Spurs have conceded the opening goal in 9 home games this season in the Premier League, tied with Burnley and Wolves for most in the competition. Spurs have failed to win any of their last 27 matches when conceding first in the Premier League since a victory over Aston Villa in November 2024. Now, Thomas Frank has averaged 1.12 points per game at Spurs in the Premier League, 29 points in 26 games, the lowest rate of any manager in the club history with 5 or more games in the competition. Tottenham now have more chance of being relegated. That is 3.95%. So they are having 3.95% relegation than they do in finishing inside the top 9 of the Premier League this season. That is 3%, according to Opta. Now, with the 27% win rate at the club, the worst of any manager at Spurs since 2008. So right now, according to reports, Tottenham Hotspur is eyeing Enzo Maresca. So according to Matchday Central, Enzo Maresca is now Tottenham Hotspur's #1 target for manager's job. Spurs admires his football philosophy and plan to make contact in the coming days. So let's see whether Enzo Maresca will succeed Thomas Frank at Tottenham Hotspur or not. But the news is that Tottenham Hotspur have sacked Thomas Frank.